Hello all. Welcome back to two-day APAC virtual BFSI Finnovation Conclave. This is the first day, and in the inaugural, we have seen presence of eminent thought leaders and policymakers from the government ecosystem and financial ecosystem of the country. We have seen the presence of Mr. Samir Verma, who is an IAS officer and Special Secretary of Finance, Government of UP. We were also joined by Mr. Amit Saxena, CTO of Reserve Bank of India Innovation Hub, and Mr. Bhuvan Joshi, he is the VP, Enterprise Architect of GSTN. And then it was followed by industry presentation. And today, now we have a very special panel discussion, one of the most important panel discussion of this two-day event, a panel on banking on the future, keeping up with the financial landscape. And for that, we have digital transformation leaders from various banks of India who have joined us along with industry leaders. And I'd like to introduce all our speakers for this panel. Let me introduce to all of you. We have with us Mr. Nitin Kuchhal, Senior Vice President, Digital Banking, Yes Bank. We welcome Mr. Nitin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
We're
Pleasure to
also
be here.
joined by Mr. Deepak Sarda, GM, IT, and CTO, Indian Bank. We welcome
Thank
Mr.
you.
Deepak. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining us
you very
today.
much. Thank you.
We're also joined by Mr. Ratan Kumar, Senior GM and CIO, Central Bank of India. We welcome Mr. Ratan Kumar. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure is mine.
We are also joined by Mr. Joe Robertson, EMEA CISO and Senior Evangelist, Fortinet. We welcome Joe. Thank you so much for joining us from France.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Same here. We are also joined by uh, Sekar S, General Manager and CIO, Karur Vysya Bank. We welcome Mr. Sekar. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you can unmute your mic, Mr. Sekar.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Pleasure. We're also joined by Mr. Murli Mohan Rao Manduva, CTO of DCB Bank. We welcome Mr. Murli Mohan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Hamik. It's pleasure to be there, with the M panel, team.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank
And
you.
we're also joined by Ms. Jasmin B. Gupta, National President of Financial Inclusion Council of Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you so much, Jasmin, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
So before we start the panel discussion, let me give a perspective about this event. This event is organized. Uh, the rational thinking behind organizing this event is that we want to bring the best of the minds from the BFSI landscape together to discuss and deliberate upon various aspects of leveraging technology and innovation for the banking, financial sector and insurance sectors. We have sessions on banking, we have session on NBFC, we have session on cooperative banks, we have session on uh, fintechs, and also we have a special sessions on focusing on emerging technologies like AI, IoT, blockchain, cryptocurrency, cybersecurity. So all these things will be discussed today and tomorrow with the thought leaders from the BFSI sector. So let me first ask a question to Mr. Nitin. Nitin, how are banks looking to leverage new gen technologies like AI, analytics, or RPA to further their digital transformation? Your thoughts on that?
Well, to begin with, I'd like to make a disclaimer. I'm here in my personal capacity, although I work with Yes Bank, and so any views and opinions are both absolutely mine. So coming to your question, I think, as you have known, banks have been predominantly, not very adaptive of technology, but with the onset of all the fintechs, neobanks, and challenger banks, I think the banks have realized that they will have to adopt to new technologies in order to be competitive and, most important, be relevant in the market to the consumers, right? So I think this realization came quite a decade back. I clearly remember ICICI Bank was one of the first banks to understand this challenge, and they started engaging with the industry, where they started holding hackathons, and whichever company had a good product or a solution, ICICI uh, invested in those companies or acquired those companies or worked very closely with them to, innovate on the solutions that the bank in itself inherently couldn't provide to the market. without changing the technological landscape. So I think that kick-started the banking, the revolution, technology revolution in the banking sector in India. And I think last 7 to 8 years have been, we've seen so many fintechs coming up. So I think the latest trend in the banking industry is the OPI, open banking, the API-led business model, which has led to a lot of deep collaboration between the banks and the fintechs and the technological companies. Apart from that, as you rightly said in your opening remarks, AI, ML, robotics, robo advisors, all these technologies have kind of become mainstream in day-to-day activities of the bank. So I think the banks are realized and they've started incorporating all these technologies in their day-to-day operations.
Right, right, right. As you have rightly said that if you see the banking sector in India, they were one of the early adopters of leveraging technology to be in the competition, to be to give the better customer experience. And I was said that now is the trend of open banking and also API-based banking that is also going to be leveraged by the banking sector in coming days. So maybe 10 years down the line, before we never thought that video KYC can be done. Now it's like
Absolutely.
it's a normal thing. So I'll
Absolutely.
come back to you, Nitin. Let's have
Yeah.
a perspective from Mr. Deepak Sarda. He's a GM IIT and CTO of Indian Bank. Deepak, your thoughts on how banks are looking to leverage newest technologies?
Uh, as Mr. Nitin has rightly pointed out, uh, better late than never. So, if banks want to be in race, especially public sector bank, they have to invest huge amount of money along with huge manpower to implement all new technologies. Otherwise they will not be relevant in next 1 or 2 years. So going by that, you may see ultimately data is asset. So collaborating data for the banks who are working, who are in business for more than 100 years, and getting the data from customers is not so easy. So first challenge comes there. There we do have to have some different type of methodologies to get the data, and after data privacy law coming in place, that is also becoming very very difficult. Even if you get the protection, also becomes very difficult. So right from sourcing data till mining and getting the result, everything has to happen in a very secured and confidential manner, so that the banks should not be in a problem with respect to any litigations going forward. So AI and ML is the order of the day, and without data, everything may not be we will not be able to get the desired result. So most of the banks have already started, and our bank is also in the process. To start with, it starts with data lake, then having a data mining tools, then offering pre-approved products. Now nobody wants to visit branches, and footfalls have come down with the growth in transactions. What we are seeing in a very stable UPI system, 60-70% transactions of any bank, mostly even if they are not too digital, their financial transaction comprises 50 to 60% through UPI transactions only. So we need to have a robust infrastructure at the back. Without that, we can't expand on the top of it. So having a better infrastructure base is going to be a very key challenge, which we are all seeing, that whenever transactions are increasing in a particular bank, their servers are not able to cater the load. So it starts from there and it goes. So customer experience starts from there itself, even though it is invisible. But unless that is strong, you we can't give that experience, and can't have technologies also in place unless your foundation is strong. So I feel that's the first step. And privacy of data, using various tools, by implementing like Aadhaar, we have to implement Aadhaar Vault or masking. Various things are there. So all such things are going to be adopted and going to be using a lot of sophisticated technologies, because ultimately even when you put a lot of restrictions, your response time to access the data also goes down. So we have multiple challenges in hand, but banks are tackling, and industry is also evolving. So hopefully in couple of years, most of the banks will be totally digital, having AI, ML, robotics, all these solution in place. Thank you.
Right, right. As Deepak was saying that there are multiple challenges are there, but banking industry is trying to cope up with those challenges by investing more and more in technology, because that is the need of the hour. No denial of the fact that technology is the present, technology is the future. More we invest in technology, that will be beneficial for the sector, and obviously that adequate infrastructure, the digital infrastructure has to be in place. I'll come back to Deepak. Let's have a perspective from Mr. Ratan Kumar. He's a senior GM and CIO of Central Bank of India. But a different question to Mr. Ratan. Ratan, how are digital technologies improving the customer service experience of the banks? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, see, first of all, I am GM IT and CTO, not a CIO. And just a clarity. And the views, whatever I'm expressing, are my personal views, nothing to do with the organizational point of view. Now, leaving it behind, let me tell you, the customer experience has reached a paramount importance in the recent years. The customers really expect that banks should focus on creating an experience culture that need and nurture their needs, builds trust, and personalized and exceeds their expectations. For example, in customer experience, now as we develop, it moves from a rational to emotional aspects. Like satisfaction of the customers is more not merely on intellect rather than emotional. Now, the second point can be it is not merely meeting their needs, but value creation. How much value we are providing to that service. And the movement is also from systems to relationships and feedback. So these are all the emotional content is now surpassing, not rather than just meeting the needs of the customers. Now, some of the major technological tools which the expectations from the customers are like easy accessibility, provide ease and to use digital platforms that are simple across all channels, all devices, mainly via smartphone, and seamless omni-channel experience, and real-time assistance, provide real-time support by using live assistant tools like co-browsing and video chat, hyper-personalized services, meeting to the very and contextualized services, personalized information, and more importantly, consumers want humanized digital interaction. This is a flavor to it. Like by using chatbots and digital interaction, we can automate most of the interactions. But at the same time, they require live chat support wherever customer needs it. So these are the paradigms which the banks are focusing actually. Now, for a traditional banks or for example public sector banks, the challenges are different actually, because we are dealing with both the millennial customers as well as the traditional customers. Now, this presents a very unique challenge for the public sector banks because they have to satisfy older generations and younger generations of the banking customers at the same time. So the answer is a hybrid banking model that integrates digital experiences into traditional bank branches. So these are the paradigms which we are encountering as far as because we are having a legacy IT systems and a legacy customers as well as new age customers. So the demands and requirements are different. Now, how we are able to bridge this is becoming a challenge. Thank you.
Right, right. I'll come back to Ratan Kumar. Bridging the gap is a challenge, and you have said that need of the hour is humanized digital infrastructure. That's what client wants, the people wants, and also at the same time you have to focus on hybrid model. I'll come back to you, Mr. Ratan Kumar. Let's have a perspective from the industry because till now we got perspective from what the banking digital transformation leaders are thinking, but what the industry is thinking. So let's have a perspective from Joe Robertson, who is the EME CISO and Senior Evangelist of Fortinet. We welcome Joe. You heard the speakers from various banks of India expressing their opinions on various aspects of technology. But if I may ask you so, that when you talk about data, innovation, technology, there has to be a framework of cyber security, ensuring cyber security as well, security, privacy. Where do you see, and what are the areas do you see that the challenges are there, and how can those challenges be overcome by using technology to mitigate those challenges or those threats?
Well, Thank you very much. I think it's a very good question because, as Mr. Kumar was saying, banks have become and have to become customer centric. And when you talk about customer centric, that means being able to communicate with those customers. Traditional banks have the advantage of having a branch system, but it's also a disadvantage because it's a costly system. The new fintechs are totally online, but they don't have that same individual person-to-person connection. So there are challenges on both sides, but I think that they all face, whether they're fintech or banking or some combination in a hybrid sense, they've got major challenges because of the huge data sets that they're dealing with that have to be protected. And with the new Indian data privacy law that's coming in, which is even stronger than the European GDPR, there has to be an enormous amount of focus on being able to protect the information of the customer. And by the same token, it's not just the government regulators that are forcing this, but the customers themselves, because we see in the press so much information about ransomware and hacks and attacks on different organizations that banking customers realize that their money is at stake. And so there is pressure from the customer side to have in place tools which they can see, such as multi-factor authentication, which many banks have put in place now, so that you have to receive an SMS and put in a code before you can access your accounts, things like that. But behind the scenes, it's important to have more than just a firewall, for example. Banks have thousands of employees, many of them working from home, and that creates a challenge because you have to suddenly your data network has extended from the data center out to people's homes. So you have to make sure that you've not only got basic antivirus protection, a basic VPN, but a much higher level of security, even out to the individual's homes. So the challenges that are facing the banking industry and fintech and just the finance industry in general have to do with getting data from point A to point B, satisfying customers who could be anywhere, point A, point B, point C, and at the same time preventing attackers from being able to intercept that information and either steal data or literally steal money. In fact, one of the big attacks that our researchers are seeing this year is attacks on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency wallets. And that becomes obviously it's going to be a bigger and bigger challenge in the financial industry as we bring in technologies such as blockchain, et cetera. So the challenges are many, but there's also many tools to deal with them by looking at data, networking, and security in a holistic manner.
Right. You talked of the challenges of getting data from point A to point B to point C. Also, at the same time, customer satisfaction, ensuring the digital infrastructure in place. But those challenges again can be mitigated by using smart systems and networking solutions as well. And obviously, there is a threat of crypto, all those things. But and for keeping in mind that fact, we also have a session on cryptocurrency in this 2-day virtual fintech event as well. I'll come to you, Joe. Let's have a perspective from Mr. Sekar S, General Manager and CIO of Karur Vysya Bank. Uh, Mr. Sekar, if I may ask you that, what are the banks looking at seamless integration with non-banking apps, analytics, backaches, personalized offers, and aggregated overview of daily activities. Your thoughts on that? If you can unmute your mic, please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Initially, banks were offering only the banking related products to the customers, be it a savings bank account or a term deposit or a loans. It started with that. It started with providing parabanking activities like extending mutual fund or an insurance product with tie-ups. With tie-ups, we were able to provide such services to the customers. Now, the order of the day is now, can I offer, if he is a MSME customer, can I offer him a payroll system also along with this? Or if he is a retail customer, individual customer, can I offer him a personal service or a wealth management service or a health related service also along with that, which is a value add service that comes up. So non-banking apps are also getting integrated into banking apps now for extending services to the customers. Now it is becoming order of the day. This is on one hand. On the other hand, when we talk about financial inclusion with the business correspondence services at rural places, it has to be added along with various other services. For example, when we talk about a digital village that we adopt, we will have to extend agriculture products and services to the customers there. And or can I extend social internet facilities like that to a particular covering the entire village so that all are benefited out of that? Can I extend this as a meeting place in a digital village so that the common issues that are extended? So various such kind of non-business, stepping into non-business area also, it is extended. Co-lending is also now as becoming an order of the day, where jointly we can work with fintechs and then provide co-lending facilities. So it goes much beyond. How I don't think it will become it will not be a magic in another 2-3 years. Banking offering a grocery service also to the customers. You come to me, I will offer grocery like that. It becomes much easier because of the various technologies that are available. Can I integrate with anybody and jointly work with any type of service so that it satisfies the customers? It is becoming that trend, and banks are moving towards that.
Right. Banks are moving towards that direction where we can see more and more integration of non-banking apps with the main banking ecosystem. And other day, it's all about added solutions, services to the customers. And you also talked about the financial inclusion angle, especially reaching out the last mile in the rural sector. I'll come back to you, Mr. Sekar. Let's have a perspective from Mr. Murli Mohan Rao Manduva, who is the CTO of DCB Bank. Mr. Murli, your thoughts on that? That what are the unique, how are the banks looking at seamless integration with various factors? Your thoughts on that? Mr. Murli, can you hear me? Mr.
Hi,
Murli?
good afternoon from my end. Good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Please proceed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this. I mean, this is an interesting time to be there in the financial or a banking, banking sector. Just to give a perspective, I think Indian banks, at least from from an Indian banking perspective, we have been very quite adaptive and innovative. And as other panelists have started, I think we started this whole kind of a digital journey, possibly a decade ago, to start with. And I think thanks to the regulator and government of India for a futuristic view in terms of getting some of the frameworks ready for us. For example, we have had, we started with the digital identity, the Aadhaar was enabled, UPI is enabled, and you're seeing how people have adopted UPI usage of UPI over the last 3-4 years. Like it's like every year it's possibly doubling or tripling. And the latest introduction you would have seen in the last budget. We're talking about the CBDC. That's going to be another explosion. So in all this context, what's happening is that there is a regulated framework, rather the digital framework regulated by the regulator, and that's what is really helping many of us to be part of the ecosystem. As the fundamental question in terms of the data sharing layer, which actually works out for fintechs or any other ecosystem or a third system player, is using some of this framework like an account aggregator, which has got introduced very recently, and that's what gives creates a platform. From a banking perspective, what most of the banks are doing is that we're creating the integration framework, integration layer. Like we created the middle layer, and we are offering most of our services to be consumed by any other fintech or a product or a service player to be consumed, and then we co-create some of the new age or innovative products to be offered across the spectrum of our customers. And that's where it's going to be more of a win-win game. And as long as you create the platform and you enable all your products and services to be consumed by the other apps and fintechs, I think we are all in the game, and we are all in possibly in a most better way in terms of a revenue sharing model. And I think that's what we are focusing, and we are trying to get ourselves into the enablement of a platform at our side, Souvik.
Right, right, right. I'll come back to Mr. Murli Mohan Rao. You talked about that. It's an interesting time to be in the BFSI sector because a lot of innovation being happening, especially with apps, the fintech transformation which is happening. We talked about the UPI transaction, digital transaction. It's a fact that I can remember that there's a saying in governance that in government offices there should not be any citizen should be there. So citizens should not go to government offices to have to obtain services. That was also to be true about that. Citizens should not go more into banks, rather they can get their services through digital mode, and that is happening now. It's not more that it's no more a dream. It's a reality now. There are challenges, but I'm sure that those challenges can be overcome in coming months and years or so. We have a special guest from the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We have with us Jasmin Gupta, National President, Financial Inclusion Council of WICCI. Welcome, Jasmin. My question to you will be that you heard other speakers, they're talking about apps, fintech, various opportunities and challenges. But if I may ask you that, how would the digital neobanks of the future look like? And what would be their main constituents? Your thoughts on that?
Thanks. I think it's been a very interesting conversation so far. And as far as the new banking scene we see growing in India, last year we saw some of the four most prominent neobanks coming up. And we've seen the customers also being receptive and acceptable to the entire concept of neobanking. So that's a very positive thing. The future, as we see in this space, of course, everyone wants a digital license because that is what is going to reduce the dependence of neobanks on the licensed banks, while integration with licensed bank, innovative concepts, banks with fintechs, common solutions, integrated solutions, it has it has come out and given a boost to the industry. I think the neobanks, in order to grow and develop, they would definitely look forward to a digital license. Now let's see how the recommendations of RBI committee come up, and we look forward to how the scene is taking shape. Having said that, I think neobanks going forward will be more focused on specific target segments. So we will see more neobanks specific, meeting the needs of factory workers or blue collar workers, specifically meeting the needs for women as a customer segment, MSMEs, gig workers. Customized features for all of these specific target segments is something that we can envisage coming up in future, because everything for everyone is something that the banks have, the traditional banks, the private banks have already offered. What neobanks would bring to the industry is going to be customized features, customized solutions specific to these target segments, and also ecosystem based solutions. So the needs of a factory worker, the needs of a fisherman community, the needs of a millennial community or a student community, all of these needs are going to be very, very different. And that's where I think innovative solutions which help address the ecosystem requirements of that particular target segment and the specific use cases will be the
I think there's some network issue with Jasmin. If she joins back, fine. But if I may take the crux of what she was saying, that neobanks will be focusing more on customized solutions for specific target base. That can be for MSME workforce, workers working the mill, fishermen, women. I think Jasmin is back with us. Jasmin, can you hear us?
yeah, I'm back. So that was the point that I
Uh,
was making.
right, right. I was just telling that only. I'll come
I'm
back to
trying.
you. Uh, I'll come back to Nitin first. Nitin, you heard other speakers. We have discussed on various aspects of technology, the future, the challenges. If I may ask you, Nitin, that maybe 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, where do you see the banking sector in India is moving towards? It will be a mix of physical and digital banking, which we call as phygital banking, or it will be primarily, it will become all digital. Your thoughts on that? Maybe I can ask this question to each and everybody of yours. Yeah.
So personally speaking, as somebody in the panel mentioned, that we are humans, right? And we would never want to lose that human touch, be it any part of your life, right? So to answer your question, I believe we will gradually move towards more of digital. Having said that, the physical will still remain. The brick and mortar, the shop's going to remain, the outlets, bank branches are going to remain, because there's certain processes or certain things that can be done by humans. No matter how advancements we make in technology. So I am of the firm opinion, believe that humans cannot be replaced in entirety. So that and but having said that, to further on your question, how the banks will look like in the future, probably 5 years down the line, not if not 10 years. I believe there'll be a lot of technological advancements in the way we conceptualize a solution or a service, in a way how we deliver that service to the consumers, and in a way how consumers perceive that solution or a service. That in a way downstream is that the brand awareness, the customer stickiness, and the personalization of the service from a customer point of view. So my take is, all the technology is put aside, but I think from a solution point of view, I believe voice is going to be the next big game changer. We've already seen when the wearables, right? Siri is one, Alexa is another example. A couple of banks have incorporated Alexa or voice-based commands in their financial services, right? So I believe voice is going to be the next big changer. The neo banks, challenger banks are all digital banks, mobile first strategy. They have, even the incumbent banks have got into that strategy. The big techs are getting into that strategy. all that is going to become mundane going forward. The point being, so my point is the voice based is going to be the next big changer. Embedded finance. I think one of the questions was, how fintechs and banks are working together. Embedded finance, embedded insurance, credit, investments for that matter are going to become the norm of the day. Uh, Paytms, Olas, Ubers, even Amazon are offering that kind of services currently to all the consumers. But the service uptake is a big question because uh, the customer trust in a brand, that is what the neobanks and the challenger banks uh, kind of lack currently. And that is what the current, be it private sector or public sector banks, they still have that benefit. The customers trust mainstream banks more than the startup banks, if I may call them so. So I think that is going to take some time to build. And once that happens, then probably the embedded finance and the embedded services into the mainstream applications will define who retains more customers, who gets more pie of the share, more customers, more business, more profits. So that is how I see next 5 years and probably defining later part of the 5 years be defining moments. That is what I see.
So, according to Nitin, voice-based solutions will be the game changer along with the embedded
Yeah.
services in maybe 5 years down the line. Deepak Sarda, your take on that, your thoughts on that, the future of banking. Uh, where do you see India's banking story going towards?
To add on to what Mr. Nitin has said, human can't be replaced. So even if it is going to be a revolution through voice, which basically may be a call center, which is also working now, but maybe in limited uh, scope. But in some banks, it may be in lot of marketing. They are doing marketing also in the present scenario. Instead of having in com- calls taken by the customers for serving them for their difficulties, in the process they are doing cross marketing, cross selling. So human can't be replaced, but yes, with the advent of blockchain technology, digital currency, which maybe in 1 or 2 years going to be the reality, things are going to change. But physical bank is going to remain. Maybe size may shrink, but branches will remain, and some of the services can't be done without having human interaction. So that will continue to be there, but maybe size may reduce, and it may be 80-20 ratio. But with the advent of technology, definitely yes, uh, branches will shrink more and more by size and by manpower and by other means also. So that will be the future.
Right. Right.
Yes.
It brings me to the speech given by Mr. Samir Verma, who is the Special Secretary of Finance, Government of UP, today in the inaugural itself. He was telling that in UP in last 3 4 years in the state of Uttar Pradesh, the number of ATMs have gone down, and which is a good thing for them because that means that more people are using more and more digital means for their banking transactions. So he was actually trying to stay a very good side of the digital transformation happening in the banking sector. I just took a cue from what Mr. Deepak Sada was saying. Let's have a perspective from Mr. Ratan Kumar. Ratanji, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, just to shift the focus on a different paradigm. I mean, I will say the changing business models of the banks, it is going to impact actually the business models. For example, a huge amount of investments is going on a technology front, capital investments for compliance, regulatory front of this thing. The other point is it is we are sustained low interest rates which we have to provide to the customers. Then very wafer thin margins on which we need to operate. So, and these are all going to put a huge amount of pressure on the traditional banks. So, the business models, the way we do business is going to be redefined. Apart from the all my esteemed panelists have said, whatever it is that in addition to voice, I think the facial recognition also go a lot, and payment systems through voice based, and money management and saving solutions prioritizing card payments, and I mean these are all the bank app recognizing the payment patterns and suggest products and offerings. So, I mean, there is a huge gamut of things which are going to happen. But as a banker, I mean, from the business point of view, I'll say the business models will going to impact it a lot. The way we do business. That's going to be the end point.
Right, right. Joe, your thoughts on that? If you can unmute your mic, Joe.
I'll take it from a slightly different angle. What does a bank need to do to be successful in the next 5 years, 10 years? And if we talk about commercial banks, actually, I think Ms. Gupta had some very, very good thoughts on that, which is that you're going to need to be able to focus on different sectors and in a sense, look different, provide different services to different marketplaces, whether it's based on age or blue collar worker versus white collar or whatever. But traditional banks have a tremendous advantage in that they know so much, have so much data about those customers. What's going to be necessary in the next 5 years is to be able to take advantage of what they know in common about those different marketplaces, but still be agile enough to provide a look that is unique for the student, that is unique for the factory worker, that is unique for the white collar worker, and which can change as that student enters the workforce, can look like the same bank, and yet it's feeding new needs that I have as an individual as I grow up. And that requires flexibility, it requires agility. And a big part of that is technology, being able to present different faces through different technologies, whether it's smartphones or web applications or in branch banking. And so that flexibility requires strong IT, strong networking, and of course, as we mentioned before, strong security, being able to have a different look, but always be as secure and always have as good a response as previously, whether it's data or voice, as Mr. Nitin was saying. So I think the next 5 years, next 10 years are going to be show that those banks which are able to put in place flexible IT systems and flexible and well-protected IT systems are the ones that are going to succeed.
Right, right. So according to Joe, for banks, they need to be flexible and a protected IT system has to be in place to survive and to be in the competitive age in the future. Thanks, Joel. With this, I'll have a perspective from Mr. Sekar from Karur,
Yeah.
Vysya. Mr. Sekar, your thoughts on that, please.
Um, See, I feel in the next 5 years to 10 years, the way in which we conduct business now, banking business, will undergo a complete change. In the sense, today how network operators, the mobile network operators, how do they operate? Banking will evolve into that level, I think. For example, even a 5 minute or a 10 minutes customer dissatisfaction will eventually make the customer to move from one service operator to other service operator. Banking will also evolve in such a way. So banks will have to be ready with necessary technology infrastructure. Mr. Nitin pointed about the embedded services. That will be the order of the day. After that, whether voice or video, that is different. But customer service is going to be completely changing because customer madam said neo banking will evolve. Neo banking is going to be coming then. Customer will have multiple choices before them to switch over from one service to another service, from one bank to another bank much easily, and technologies will play a vital role in that. And banks will have to be will have to be ready to take advantage out of that and to retain customer. Customer stickiness is going to be a very big challenge in next 5 years to 10 years. And how do I retain customer is going to be the competitive advantage for banks. And technology is going to play a vital role on that.
Right, right. Technology is going to play a very vital role in that. Murli Mohan Rao, your thoughts on this, please.
I'd put it in one perspective. I think, see, you said 10 years. I mean, for me, 10 years is possibly two generations. Earlier, the generation gap used to be, we used to talk about 15 years. I think now it has got shrunk to 5 years, in my view. I look at the change is going to be in three fronts. Personalization is going to be there, and personal touch is expected to continue. So banks are going to have a hybrid. But how is that personal touch can be extended with technology? For example, there could be more of a AR VR capability that comes into the picture, while while you're still working on automation, etc. But with personification and personal conversations could be better with the 5G in place and AR VR technology to be available. That's one area I think that's going to be we're going to make it tremendously big progress. Second, as Mr. Sekar said, banking on demand is going to be the is going to be the norm, right? There are no 9 to 5 kind of a branch services, etc. So everything is expected to be 24/7, because we are talking about digital also kind of a customers to digital native customers, right? We expect, I mean, the current generation Gen X thing, they're born and brought up in a digital available kind of environment. So having not having anything around digital is something that's kind of going to hit them in terms of a survival. So banking on demand is what it's going to be. Like Mr. Shaker said, it's like the network operator, right? Nobody would want it to would have a tolerance of not having a service at any point of time during the day. The third one is, if you look at, I think the mobile has replaced everything, almost every other ornament in human body, right? Whether it is watch, whether it is your, the currency itself. I mean, the only thing that we are now setting is possibly the physical currency or plastic. I think that's going to be changing with the virtual cards coming into the picture, with CBDC, the regulator digital currency that's there. Possibly that's the last thing that we're going to lose, and I think with the regulator behind the digital currency, I think that's the third area. I think we should see revolutionary changes in the next 5 6 years. Savik. And of course,
Revolutionary
all
changes
this
in.
comes out with a lot of data security, and most of us will be falling behind Jove, and likes of Fortinet to give us security.
I can see a smiling face of Joe.
Happy to be of help.
The Let me come back to Jasmin. Jasmin, your thoughts on that, especially if I may ask you that, how do you see the future of financial inclusion in India by leveraging technology and digital innovation? Quickly.
Yeah. So I think the future is going to be next 5 years. If you ask me, it may be digital, but next 10 years it will definitely be digital. Um, I think the next 5 to 10 years, I see it is an era of innovations for the banking sector. We've seen many banks coming out with accelerator programs wherein they want to tie up with a lot of new ideas, a lot of new startups, and co-create solutions and go to market with unique offerings for Bharat specifically. So for Bharat, for the financial inclusion for the tier 2, tier 4 segment that we talk of, I think a lot of innovation is going to be a future wherein the mom and pop shops, we can see them turning into bank branches. We may not have bank branches, but we may have banking services available to the last mile. We may have smart cities
I think we have again lost Jasmin because of the connection issues. I think we have come to the end of this panel discussion on banking on the future, keeping up with the financial landscape. I think Jasmin is back with us. Jasmin,
apologies for the bad network. Yeah.
yeah, okay, no issues. We are concluding the session. If I take the crux of the discussion of last 1 hour, I must say that this session was insightful, learning experience for me personally, and also for, I'm sure, for the audience who are present here virtually. I've been told there have been 300 plus audience who delegates who have joined our this virtual event today, and maybe tomorrow the number will be a little higher. It has been insightful and learning experience for all of us, hearing all of you, the digital transformation leaders from banks and also the industry leaders. Uh, if I take a crux that of the discussion, I must say that it will be like the future is bright. We have to embrace technology, digital innovation, but there will always a human touch to digital technology, uh, and no denying of that fact. And there also have to be proper systems and networking integration has to happen to ensure or to mitigate the risk of cyber threats as well. And there are many brighter future things are there like neobanks, payment system, voice-based solutions, facial recognition, fintech revolution, which is happening in India. Uh, but as Mr. Deepak or Mr. Nitin was saying, that there will be technology enhanced use of technology uh, will be more, but there always will be the human touch which is going to be there. And Jasmin was saying the physical and digital thing is going to stay for India's banking system. Thank you so much. But before we end this session, uh, I may just use a quote of Thomas Davenport, who was President's Distinguished Professor in IT and Management in US. He said that every company has big data in its future, and every company will eventually be in the data business, because I am sure, be it banking sector, financial sector, any other sector, we all will be slowly we're moving towards that segment where we all become data companies at the end of the day. But always we have to be aware of the fact that physical touch will be always there. So in this note, we end this session. That was a session on banking on the future, keeping up with the financial landscape. We had with us Nitin Kuchhal from Yes Bank, Deepak Sarda from Indian Bank, Ratan Kumar for Central Bank of India, Joe Robertson from Fortinet, Sekar from Karur Vysya Bank, Murli Mohan Rao from DCB Bank, and Jasmin Gupta from Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. But before uh, I let you go, the small token of recognition from our end to all of your speakers. Can we have the award certificates on screen, please? The first award goes to Mr. Nitin Kuchhal for his pioneering role in innovation and technology leadership in BFSI. We congratulate Mr. Nitin. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
The second award goes to Mr. Deepak Sarda, but I think Mr. Deepak Sarda has left. I'll request my team if they can connect with Mr. Deepak Sarda, who can join us again. We move to the next award. We have with us Mr. Ratan Kumar, who is the CTO of Central Bank of India. It's our honor to recognize your efforts, sir. Congratulations for winning the APAC BFSI Finnovation Leadership Award.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We also want to present a certificate to Mr. Joe Robertson, who is the EMEA CISO and Senior Evangelist of Fortinet, for his pioneering role in the innovation and technology leadership. We congratulate Joe. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
We also want to recognize the effort of Mr. Sekar of Karur Vysya Bank. Again, it's our pleasure to recognize your efforts, sir, for your pioneering role in innovation and technology leadership in BFSI. We congratulate you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Also, we want to present award certificates of Murli Mohan Rao Mandova, CTO of DCB Bank, for his pioneering role in innovation and technology leadership in BFSI. I think Mr. Deepak Sarda and Jasmin has left, maybe some network issue. With I think I've been told that they are joining. So if we can wait for 20 seconds or so, if they can join, fine. Uh, Otherwise, we have to move to the next session. Thank you again, Mr. Nitin Kuchhal, Ratan Kumar, Murli Mohan Rao, Sekar and Joe Robertson for joining us for this session. Very important session on banking on the future, keeping up with the financial landscape. Do join us for the next session at 2 p.m. IST Indian time today for a session on impact of digitization in cooperative banks and credit cooperative societies. I think Jasmine has joined. Uh, Quickly, we want to hand over the award certificate to Jasmine. Can we have the certificate on screen, please? It's an honor to recognize your efforts, Jasmine B. Gupta, National President, Financial Inclusion Council of Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, for a pioneering role in innovation and technology leadership in BFSI. Thank you so much. With this, we come to the end of this panel discussion, and let's meet at 2 p.m. IST today for a session on impact of digitization in cooperative banks and credit cooperative society. Thank you so much. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you,
Thank
Soumik.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Pleasure.
Goodbye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.